Countdown to 9.
Evacuate in our moment of triumph. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the one that started it all. The movie that changed our lives. In my opinion, the highlight of the Countdown to 9 podcast as we work our way chronologically through the Star Wars universe. The 1977 original. It's like it's become boxing. The 1977 original. Everybody's favorite movie, Star Wars. Episode 4 in your re-release scroll, but Episode 7 in our countdown as we prep for December's The Rise of Skywalker. Paul Preston here from the Movie Guys with my good friend and co-host Sean Blodgett of the prodigious and influential Creative Motion Entertainment.
I love that you always come up with these different words to describe.
I said mighty for actually.
I really liked Mighty. Mighty was great. I enjoyed that. Prodigious is good. It's actually fantastic.
And you know how I came up with your describing your company as prodigious?
What's that?
See, you'd think I looked at your company and examined all the great things about it. Instead, I hit the thesaurus.
Oh. Well, either way, I'll take it, and thank you very much. Yeah. Yes.
As of this taping, we are 18 weeks and 4 days away from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. That's 130 days, whichever sounds better. 18 weeks doesn't sound awful.
No. I'm getting more and more excited. Every episode I keep saying I'm getting more and more excited, but I really actually am. I feel like this is helping the anticipation of it all.
This is therapy for us.
It pretty much is, yeah.
Joining us this month, a longtime friend of mine and the Movie Guys, racking up 5 appearances on the old movie showcast.
5?
He always brought wacky Star Wars nonsense on the show, and today will be no different, because that's how I demand it. He is an accomplished editor. His most recent project is still in a few theaters out there. It is playing still here in LA. You can go down to Santa Monica and you can watch a film having a great run in the summer for a documentary, Echo in the Canyon. And he is the Phantom editor as well. It's Mike J. Nichols.
Woo!
Thank you.
Yes. And if you don't know what the Phantom editor is, he had his way with the Phantom Menace.
You have an episode in your archives of this, too.
What? We talked all about this?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. Please go look up in the movieguys.net, find Mike's previous appearances.
I'm going to chime in right here and say Paul was nice enough to share it with me many years ago, and I was so excited to see it. I loved it.
You saw both of them.
I saw both of them,
Yeah.
but I loved your version, and then you did episode 2 as well, and I loved that. I really loved that because there were a lot of scenes that they cut out of episode 2 that actually were more about people, which is
less about robots.
Yeah,
Robots and
robots
and clones and whatnot. All right, so we'll talk definitely about that later because Mike has his own little corner of the Star Wars universe carved out for himself. But some quick housekeeping. Please chime in your thoughts at themovieguys.net, countdown9@gmail.com, or at countdown9 everywhere pretty much, all over your social medias. And before we get to our spotlight film every month, we lead with the latest news about Episode 9.
Yep.
I don't know if I should expect a trailer till after the summer, but they do have the D23
I think D23 is
Expo.
probably going to give us something, don't you think, or no?
They, if they don't know, D23 is the fan club of Disney, and Disney's D23 Expo is now where they've done a lot of announcements and they've pulled a lot of stuff from other cons and took it to their in-house con, the D23 Expo. That comes up the weekend of August 23rd, so maybe.
Yeah.
So we don't know when we'll get a new trailer. But the funny thing is, last month, the last show, we said was a slow news month. Nothing much was accomplished. This month might even be a fake news month.
Yep.
Because they're so grasping for something to report on with Star Wars Episode 9 that a lot of the news headlines are weird. Would you like? I'm going to do the late night talk show guy. Would you like to see some of the listen to some of these titles?
Absolutely.
Let's see. So, this is news to make you go, really? But here's a real one. This I saw. A Darth Vader head floats above Bristol. Did you see that? They had a hot air balloon festival in Bristol, England, and one of the heads was a giant Darth Vader head.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
That's hilarious.
I guess it's not Episode 9 news, but if you can watch the video of it, it's actually pretty cool.
It's Star Wars news, so
you don't know that.
It's
it could
true.
be.
Yeah.
Ian McDiarmid was commenting on it. looks good. Whatever. Let's see. Here's a headline: How George Lucas spends his $6.4 billion fortune. Like, we got nothing if this is what we're reporting.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I did read some article, and I don't know if it was true or not. It just kind of saw the headline
probably wasn't true.
Probably wasn't true because it was on the internet. That Lucas still has ownership of the original trilogy. I thought he sold everything off, but maybe that's not entirely true.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that he still owns is the permission to show the new and the old versions. That's the only thing I think that was ever a stipulation. That they could not show Star Wars, the one that we saw, not the special editions version. That's the one he wants everybody to see.
He wants to see the special editions.
Now, there was a
yeah.
screening. Did you go to it at the Directors Guild, like last month?
No.
And they
wanted
really
to.
did show a print of the original Star Wars.
That's confirmed.
The day of, people said,
Wow.
no,
Well.
for real.
Not a special edition.
And it was John Knoll.
Oh, John Knoll. My God.
Dude, we have to do it this way. Like, it was him begging for that to happen. So they showed it.
Well, they had the whole gang. Was there? Marshall Lucas showed up to the special event.
Wow.
Ben Burt was there. Edlund.
I think we talked about going, and then something happened. We couldn't go.
Well, we
Yeah.
went years ago,
Yeah.
and they sold it online, and
Right.
we bought tickets. And the day we got there, they announced, just so you know, this is not going to be. It's going to be the special edition. And there's just groans everywhere. Like,
Oh my gosh, that would be so great to see, though. I mean, the fact that it was at the Directors Guild, and because of his history with the Directors
Sure.
Guild and the Writers Guild, and them actually showing there's a little bit of a big. Well, we're gonna show it anyway, George. You know, it's like, wow, that's rough.
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is getting a cookbook. See, there's not much going on.
There's just not that. I mean, when we're talking about cookbooks for Galaxy's Edge, I mean, I'm over here.
Here's one. This is for real. The Rise of Skywalker to feature every piece of music ever in the franchise. This, according
Is that
to
that's supposed to be a real one?
Yeah. This, according to John Williams' brother. This is the news we got going on.
wait, there is a little bit of news. Kevin Smith made an announcement. He said that. You know this, right?
I go ahead. You say it.
That he did tell that story about JJ ruining his Comic-Con a few years ago by him following JJ, and JJ goes, "Hey, all right, everybody here, we're gonna have John Williams doing a concert, and everybody gets a free ticket. Let's all go over there. We have trucks and everything waiting for you." And Kevin Smith was next to do his panel, and he walked up and goes, "You know I'm after you." And he goes, "Oh, did I just steal the audience?" Yes. So that's one.
Oh
but he
my
said
God. Oh my
that
God. That's
because of
messed up.
that, he said he invited him to the set, and he went to the set of the new movie, and everybody kept saying, "Oh, did you see the set? Did you see the set?" And he told JJ, "Everybody's telling me we need to go see this set." And he goes, "Don't." He goes, "Why not?" He goes, "Because it's the last shot of the movie. So, if you want to ruin it, go see it, or don't, because you'll know." So Kevin Smith said, "I didn't go."
Ooh.
I didn't go.
Wow.
It's Mos Eisley. I don't know.
It's most
I don't know.
They just go back to.
They go back to
They just
Mel's
go back-
Diner from
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones.
With flow.
Who will Luke be sharing a scene with? That was a big article. What kind of lightsaber will Kylo be wielding?
Oh man.
What running time are we looking at?
Oh jeez.
Now they actually look at this whole thing about the score, though, actually has started people poking around online to see the kinds of music and the names of the tracks. And when you do that, then you think, oh, well, is Darth Vader in this? Because if they're going to use the Imperial March, they wouldn't do that unless...
Right.
But I suppose they could do it for the Emperor. I don't... Relax.
Well, that's like when the Phantom Menace came
13
out,
weeks.
and they put the tracks out, and people pick it up, and it says "Death of Qui-Gon." That's
Yeah.
on the back. People are like, well, he dies.
That happened in
They
Platoon.
knew
Oh,
that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There was a track in Platoon.
Wow.
Barnes shoots Elias. I'm like, what? All right.
Spoilers.
Did not know that. Wow. I do think there comes a point, with the internet, that at some point you got to curb it. Otherwise, just your experience of it's just going to be ruined.
Yeah. Calm down, Internet. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
At the countdown to 9. Speaking of Internet, though, Disney Plus, this is worth mentioning, is coming out in November. Now they've announced a Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus bundle for $12.99. So for the price of Netflix, you can now get Hulu, which Disney bought and will now contain all their rated R content, Disney Plus, which contains all the other Disney content that's family friendly, and ESPN for your sports fix, which I currently don't have, so I will be getting this.
Wow. I just said, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that means all your, that means your Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And
Which they still haven't come out with a proper trailer for.
no. BD23 Expo,
Yeah.
perhaps. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's coming up. Get excited. Now I'll spend $24 for Netflix and then the Disney Plus, ESPN, Hulu bundle, and still be about $75 less than I was paying for cable.
Wow.
All right, now as you know, we love patented movie recaps. We've done one for every movie we've covered so far on the podcast, so that means, we infuse humor and clips and all that stuff, but we all know how Star Wars goes, right? So this one shouldn't be too long. Here we go.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
A kid on a desert planet blows up the Death Star.
That's pretty much it, everybody. Well, there's a couple other things happen. They
got a
fight
lot
out
to talk
Obi-Wan
about.
Kenobi and,
we
Han
have no
Solo
time.
and the
No
Chewbacca.
time.
All right. The lightsaber.
No time. Yeah, there's unless you've been living in a Manson-esque cave, then you know what Star Wars is all about. So
Yep.
we got a lot to talk about concerning the movie, so we're not going to go over the plot.
That's right. We're going to jump in.
Yeah. Go away, listen to the movie.
Go
Watch
away.
the movie, then come back.
That
and
is like a
listen to the show.
Family Feud question. How many people in the world have not seen Star Wars? 4.
Survey said 5.
5. Sorry.
Listen, on the movie showcast, I would ask every guest who came on the show, what is your favorite movie of all time? It's assumed besides Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Star Wars is just on another plane. It's on another level. Star Wars, what's my favorite movie of all time? Oh, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, if I discount Star Wars, because Star Wars, just its own thing, is like the greatest thing that happened in our youth and then carry through our adulthood ever.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
so-
yeah, I mean, that's
That's
the
it.
truth. I mean, I know we're going to talk about this more, but I mean, it's the reason many people became filmmakers. It's the reason many people
We
became
can talk
actors.
about this right now.
Let's
Sean.
talk
Tell
about
me.
it right now. I mean, in my research in getting ready for this, I was looking online and I came across the old behind the scenes from it was 1978, maybe 80, something like that. But it was just of Star Wars, just the original making of, and it was hosted by C-3PO and R2-D2, and I had totally forgotten about this thing, and I'm watching this going, this was my youth. This was, I mean, and what was always funny about those types of shows was they rode this weird line. You're like, it's hosted by C-3PO and R2-D2, but they're talking about making the movie, and it's behind the scenes. And so, I mean, I remember as a kid just being like, wait, are they real? Are they not? They're not real. No, they're real. No, they're not real.
And they interact with Darth Vader. And they go, oh, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But they're in the same room
Yeah.
together. And he's getting a star
Yeah.
on the Walk of Fame.
Yeah, it's terrifying and wonderful.
It's like wrestling.
Yeah.
Just a character. Just doing a character.
It was like wrestling, yeah. But
Yeah.
it was just so great to see that again. It made me that whole sequence when they get the
online?
stars on not the stars, they got their foot imprints on the
Yeah,
Walk
yeah.
of Fame and
Yeah,
stuff. That I mean, I must have watched. I don't know how many times I watched that as a kid. I mean, oh my
Yeah, then they're on the Muppet Show, too, all goofing around.
Right, yeah.
I'll tell you something pathetic, and that is I went to the local library and rented a 16mm projector and that making of Star Wars 16mm film that they would rent out, and I brought it home, and I would spool it, and I would just go through and with a magnifying glass look at the frames and count how many frames it took to draw the lasers, and I took a little book and would, oh, it's 3 frames to get from there. Like I was studying the making. 'Cause that's the only way you could see footage of Star Wars.
What's interesting, though, on a bigger level, I mean, you're an editor, and I mean, this was the foundation. I mean, you actually are learning techniques. The idea that you're like, how many frames? I mean, you're even thinking about how many
Yeah.
frames. I mean, there's so much foundational stuff that I feel like we all learned
From
watching this. And this was another point, which was when we were kids. Where were you going to see behind the scenes ever of any movie? Nothing. There was nothing available. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, I mean, so this was like, oh my God, this is how they do it. And yeah.
Now you see behind the scenes before it comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Internet. We've already established what we think of the internet.
Yeah.
Right?
Dun, dun, dun.
So
It
they
was.
never-
I think that's the amazing thing of why it became so long-standing. Is it wasn't just a movie; it also was, it's a movie that, hey, you could make this, and you could make this.
Right.
And you have stuff in the closet that could make this.
Right.
And this is how we did this. And you're like, now we have do-it-yourself TV where people build houses, and
Right.
people sit around and eat potato chips and talk about how they're going to fix their house. And they probably never will, but it's exciting to them to watch do-it-yourself stuff. We watch people say you could do it yourself and make Star Wars.
Right.
Then Hardware Wars came out, and I said, I definitely could do this.
Did you love Hardware Wars?
Yeah, pretty much.
I loved it. I mean,
I did.
Anything that was Star Wars or somehow Star Wars related was just the greatest, I think.
For those who don't know, Hardware Wars was Star Wars played out with kitchen appliances. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, if you pitch that today, someone would go, get out of my office.
Yeah,
What's the matter with
that's
you?
right.
And here they made it.
Yeah.
Dude, Ernie Fossilius, the guy that made it, I saw
wow.
in an interview just recently, and he said that the guy that did Hardware Wars, that guy was a famous voiceover person, and they paid him to do that
Right.
trailer thing. And he saw that and went, I never got paid for that. He called him and said he wanted to sue him, and they said, no, we paid you for that. And he goes, oh, sorry. And he hung up the phone. And that was the end of that. But he didn't remember doing it.
funny.
It was so insignificant in
Right.
his
It
life.
was just like another
something like
day.
that. I don't remember
another,
doing that.
okay, I do Hardware Wars. And then he walks in and does,
At
you know,
least,
something
yeah.
for Charmin. Speaking of behind the scenes, I mean, there's so much to talk about with, you know, the practicality and how they had to do this stuff with models and moving cameras. And yeah, they used computers, but in a whole different way. And I got to thinking about optical printers. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God. I mean, they're literally taking this shot of the Millennium Falcon, you know, going into the bay against the blue screen, and they're taking and I'm like, and I'm thinking about optical printers, and I'm like, what a pain in the butt that they have to take these optical printers and make a new piece of negative, and that has to get. I mean, we're so spoiled now. We're like, oh, click in After Effects, oh, click in Final Cut Pro, oh, click in Avid, whatever, you know. It's just like, you know.
And it wasn't even lost to me when I was 7 that there's a shadow cast on that as it pulls into that dot.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I like knew that they took that time, took a second.
Yeah, the photochemical process versus sampling a color. I mean, the reason it was a blue screen wasn't because people were going to sample blue and
Right.
remove it. That's not the way it worked. But now, that's why we use green, because it's a better color
Right,
now than
right.
blue. But yeah, that whole process, they may not see their work for days.
Right.
And when you start doing the laborious stuff with a bunch of things on the screen, they wouldn't know.
No.
And they could be one frame off, and that's all ruined. We
Yep.
just spent, a week of our time. It's
Yeah.
ruined.
Speaking of a week of the time, I think it's on the list somewhere, but that the opening scroll shot practically.
Yes.
I mean, it just makes me so excited. I mean, that idea that they were able to do that, and it looked so great. And you know, again, now it's like, well, what font do I want?
They didn't even, and they don't even get that right.
No.
On the new ones, they don't even get the fonts right
Yeah.
between the movies. But you're right. They
Yeah.
took
Wait
a
a minute,
piece.
they're not right, in that they don't
The fonts aren't quite the same
as the original or
Yeah.
amongst each other.
amongst each other.
Really?
Yeah.
Amongst each other, really?
Like
Yeah,
Jedi
they're
and Force
quite-
Awakens.
You're not quite right. Yeah.
Ryan Johnson just like, I'm not doing anything
Yeah,
anybody else.
they're not the
says."
same. They're not perfect. And we have a computer, and they're still just not right.
Wow.
But those other ones are
cut
literally
and
just
paste.
lithographs, like on a thing, and a camera moved and
Yeah.
did all that stuff. Yeah, it was great.
No kidding. That's crazy. Well, I mean, that is, wow.
I mean,
Because
all of
it doesn't shake at all, does it? I mean, maybe you need to watch it again, but it's just a nice.
No.
it's good.
no, it's
Yeah.
really well
Is
done.
it a robotic arm that moves it then, so it doesn't?
No,
So that
It's
nothing
probably
like.
still
I
the
thought it was like a
wiggles?
drive. I thought they had to drive to do it.
Yeah, it was on gears.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But,
And
but
it
if
still
you watch
didn't, like,
Hardware
wiggle.
Wars, but if you watch Hardware Wars,
Yeah.
that one goes all over the place. on the roller screen. That one they didn't do so well.
Yeah.
But
You know, when you do things on film and practically, and also based on their budget, it was interesting. One of the things that I don't know if I knew, I didn't realize the swing across, they only shot one time. I had no, I totally, either I had read it and forgot it, or just, I was like, wow, one time. Because even there's an interview in the behind the
That's
scenes where
right.
Carrie
That's
says,
right.
yeah, we were terrified, our stomachs were hurting when we did the swing across. And then so it was like one of those things, like you go on a ride and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to do it again. They're like, nope, we got it.
yeah. Yeah, it became dangerous after they did it once. Before that, it's like, oh, you can do this. It's easy.
Yeah.
Once, okay, we're getting it.
Yeah. yeah.
Cut,
Did
done.
they live? Great. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Wow, that is an iconic shot.
Yeah.
Multiple cameras too.
I was gonna say they
yeah.
had to cover the hell out of that. Yeah.
That's the other thing, watching them behind the scenes, it reminded me of, you know, I mean, we consume, being filmmakers, so much about like new cameras and new sensors and new, this NLE has these things and da-da-da and all this stuff, these lights. And you look at the behind the scenes of Star Wars, and at the end of the day, there's so much of it that really is about the acting, the art direction. It's basic lights, and some of the cameras are just old school 35 millimeter. They're not even that great of film cameras.
They're noisy.
Yeah.
And they're on tripods.
Yeah, and they're on tripods, and it just goes to show you that it's not the camera. It's not the camera. It's what you do with it.
That's right. Who was the DP on Star Wars?
Holy
how do we
crap!
not know that guy?
How do we not know that?
To the internet.
For some reason, the name that keeps popping in my head, I know it's wrong, is Dave Tattersall, but that's for some
Yeah. I feel like that's right.
You're right. That does sound wrong.
It does sound
Oh, is it wrong?
I don't know.
That's good.
Please pause while we look this up.
We need a cue.
No, because I was going to talk to you about the editors for sure. Because we had a
you
team.
know that you have it. I know you have it. What the first editor's name was?
Yes, Tattersall. No, his name T.M. Christopher.
Okay.
Right, and then George Lucas was always uncredited as an editor, but then there was Paul Hirsch, Richard Chew, and of course
Marshall
Lucas, who all those people consider the savior of the film. So, what's the real story about how the editors came in? And you know this, right? Don't you?
I
how
know
they
a lot
came in
of
and
it.
out of the.
I can never remember what the guy's name was, but when they shoot a movie and they take the pieces and based on the script, you put the things together in the order that it is in the script. I always say there's 3 S's. There's script and there's story, then you put the style in it. And so they assemble it the way George Lucas wrote it. And they all kind of looked at it and went, wow, this is really boring. Like it didn't have anything. And he didn't like it either. But that's just kind of where it went. He just said it had nothing. And so he was talking to his wife about it. And he was begging her. She was doing, I think it's Alice doesn't live here anymore.
I think that sounds right. I feel like that is right.
And he was asking for her help. And then she was like, well, it's big. We have to get other people involved in it. And then Paul Hirsch, I think it's funny because I went and saw him at the New Beverly because he did Blowout, which is another movie I really like.
Such a great movie.
And he talked about how he met George Lucas. He did Phantom at the Paradise, which I hadn't seen at that time. And he said George Lucas was just staring at the ground. She goes, oh, this is Paul. He's an editor. And after he said he's the editor of the movie you just saw, George went, wait, you did this movie? And then they got a call, and he wanted him to work on Star Wars.
Wow.
So he was
That's
like, yeah,
so
I had
cool.
no idea I made an impression on
More
that guy at all."
stories like that will be in Paul Hirsch's book.
Yeah.
He's writing a book coming out in November.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, follow him online, and so
Nice.
that'll have all sorts of cool stories. We get the real lowdown of what's up.
But I say that she piloted a lot of the, we don't need, you know how, because there's so much ADR to replace people have masks, I think she knew that there's lots of lines they could just get rid of, that everything was redundant, and that was what, she made a serious film out of what it was. And I know they say it's for kids, but they never meant that to be for kids. That was just supposed to be a movie for everybody. And when it wasn't working, they were like, well, it'll work for kids. And that Blockbuster podcast I mentioned to you earlier, they do a reenactment of the first time they screened it for the executives. And they went, well, I guess maybe the kids will like it. And she was crying because it didn't have the music in it. It didn't have everything all fully done. But they're just like, it's a throwaway. And I think she felt like she was really putting a lot of smart adult values into that film. And it was meant to be something else. And then once John Williams' music got involved in it, it did become something else.
Was there, I don't know if we even know the answer to this, but was there this, I feel like there was some exploration that Lucas was doing, obviously, while he was making this, because there's takes of, the actors kind of being goofy, of, was there a sense of like, is this more goofy than,
I always thought.
did he not know? You know what I mean? Was there, how much did she really save? Did she go back and, I feel
There's
like
a lot of ADR. And
Yeah.
I've heard some lines of Harrison Ford where he delivered them and he sort of, I think they're just bored at that point, and
Right.
they just start throwing it away after multiple takes. They're just like,
Mostly
oh yeah,
him.
there's a spaceship, but
Yeah.
it looks like a moon, and so, like they
I
just
think
throw it away.
he's just bored.
Yeah.
He would
or
be the one.
high.
Yeah.
But
So they ADR'd a lot of things to help that. She was really clever with how to put that stuff together and make it be serious. And
Interesting.
be it sound or just cutting away and having ADR replace something.
Right.
That was what her gift was.
Right.
And then she had 2 other guys that were helping her, piece that together because it was massive.
Right.
And then the whole idea of the effects guys, you had mentioned this, the effects guys had worked for over a year and spent like $1 million, and they only had one shot that was bad because they didn't have, the stuff didn't exist, they were building it. and that's when George Lucas, the part where he took World War II footage.
Oh yeah, and spliced it in for the dogfights.
And kind
all
of
that
said,
stuff.
"Well, this is what I mean," and he gave him a representation.
Yeah.
And then those guys went, "Oh, like that became. Oh, we can imitate that."
Yeah,
We
and
can
then they
imitate-"
just literally did.
And they were on fire after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, after
Yeah.
that, but they just didn't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, they needed that direction. I mean, I feel like there was so much going on for him in the process. I mean, the development of new technology, the development of new filmmaking techniques, and then at the same token, like, you know, I know he was like kind of fighting against the crew and like,
The London crew would not. They wouldn't work past 5, and they had to take their breaks all the time. And he'd be like, "Well, is there any way we could stay long?" No. And then he went into the hospital for like a panic attack. I didn't realize that was that serious, but he thought he was having a heart attack, and he went in, and they said, "You're gonna have to stop doing what you're doing." He goes, "I'm making a film. I can't stop."
Wow.
Yeah, but he just thought it was a disaster.
Wow.
The Blockbuster podcast, though,
I'm gonna check that out.
It's just neat hearing that them reenact some of those.
And
those
it's
moments.
so it's a reenactment of Spielberg and Lucas's early days in the 70s.
But as far as what accounts that people verify that yes, this is true.
I was going to wonder what the source material is.
I don't think they just went, let's just have them talk and shake hands and play chess. No, I think it was people who were there. They interviewed them and asked them to verify.
And then they
true.
just sort of
Acted
base it on a true story.
Yes.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about where and when we saw Star Wars for the first time, and maybe you've covered this on another movie, guys. But when and where did you see Star Wars for the first time?
Or every movie, guys.
I want to say a different story, and
Go ahead.
Paul knows this because I had told him this before. But back where I was from was in a little small town in Illinois, and my friends, he had this mother who was single, and she was dating this guy, and he wanted to get in good with the kids. He goes, "Hey, I got this videotape player machine over here with some space movies. If you guys want to come over and watch it." And we went over there and sat down, and
Space movies,
he pops
yay!
in, and it's Star Wars. But this is Star Wars before it's not on VHS. No one even had that.
Right.
And we're sitting in his house looking at each other going, how are we watching this? And it was work print. It had codes and splices and everything else on there. And we saw different versions.
What?
Alternate things than what we knew that would turn black and white and do that. And we were just mesmerized. And then we would watch it again. And then the next week, we would go back over to this guy's house again and be like, "Oh, yeah, we really like to watch this." And he would show this all the time. And then he kept going, "Mom, please keep dating him so we can go watch Star Wars at his house." She didn't like him. And the last time we tried to go over, and he told us that it's not here anymore. I taped over it with wrestling, and that's it. It's gone. And I found out years later, like, how did this guy in this small town have it? And it turned out that Tom Smith, who ran ILM, he oversaw all of that through all the big Star Wars movies, was from my hometown. And those two went to high school together.
Oh my gosh.
And he just like, "Hey, I'm making this space movie." And they must have just been such good friends. He gave him something, not thinking it was any value. But it's like a 3/4 inch type tape. It's something weird like that. And we were watching a different version of Star Wars.
Oh my God.
A lot. So.
Wow. What's your memory of it? Was it good? Was it terrible? Was it?
Well, it was.
It was amazing just to see.
Amazing.
But yeah,
it was clearly just amazing. And I wish I documented.
Yes.
But I know that Biggs was in it more. That was something that we just knew. It was like that's new. That never happened before.
Right. So it had the deleted scene.
It had
Biggs.
It had portions of Biggs
Yeah.
in there. Yes.
Yeah. And that stuff. I went back and watched those deleted scenes, by the way, and it was definitely. It needed to go.
Yeah.
And there's an argument because they put his one scene with Luke back in, and it's like, no, there's no emotional value.
Bad, yeah.
You should have just kept it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too bad, but yeah.
Did the guy who played Biggs kill himself? Or
well,
should he have? No,
I mean, I don't think it changed it. Other than the fact that he wasn't known, but I can't imagine it changed the amount of money that he made in like residuals and things like that, right?
Probably not at all.
Yeah. So I mean,
he just got paid and walked away.
Yeah. So
No, you're
I mean,
right.
it's sad, and he wasn't known, but now he's kind of a legend, really. So
I mean, how cool would that be? You're sitting here today as the guy that got cut out of Star Wars,
Right?
That's still,
I mean,
you could
that's-
still show up at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And Paul, the list of people who were there. They would have a panel. There's like at the Halloween convention, there's people who played extras on the Halloween movies signing autographs because you've seen him in the movie.
Wow.
And this would be the guy. Hey, I'm the guy that got cut from Star Wars.
Wow.
Well, that
Okay,
Ba
I
Ling-
feel like he could clean up. Yeah.
Quick update. I think his name is Garrick Hagen.
Yes.
So many credits.
So that's the
so
DP.
many credits.
So many credits.
No. This is the
Oh.
this is Biggs.
Oh, Biggs.
Is he a
Oh.
Fall Guy?
The DP, by the way, Gilbert
Gilbert
Taylor. Yes.
What was it? Gilbert what?
Gilbert Taylor.
Gilbert Taylor. Props to Gilbert Taylor.
Yeah, Garrick Hagen, no shortage of work. In fact, he's got 2019 credits, so 173 credits total on IMDb.
It's Fall
The
Guy, right? He's on Fall Guy?
Turned it into all sorts of nonsense.
Wow.
Let's see. No, I don't see that here.
I'm just wishing
Maybe it's
it.
the wrong guy.
Yeah.
All of that for nothing.
All of that for nothing. I'm
Well,
just
there
making
it
stuff up.
is.
Here we are on the internet giving out fake information. But it said Red 3 Biggs, right? That would be
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Because wasn't his name Starlighter? or
Big
something?
Starlighter.
Yeah, they didn't use
Big
that here. They just
Starlighter.
called him Red 3.
Yeah.
Guy can't even get
I'm
his
just
full
going to let that
character
go.
name.
That's good. I like that better.
Oh my gosh.
But
I have an
happy-
action figure at home of him.
Oh,
I-
yeah?
Of Biggs?
Yeah. I got an
That's got to
action
be
figure.
worth something.
I never took it out of the case.
Wait, like
it was
the-
laying
like-
in a box somewhere, and I don't know what year it came out. It came out after Star Wars. It was
Yeah.
after that where they started
Yeah.
reissuing things. But I was like, I mean, no one knows who he is, so I bought that.
Yeah.
Just kind of threw it in a box and never opened
God,
it.
I
But I
love
do have
that.
a Biggs action figure.
That's awesome.
You brought toys today, Mike.
I did.
What do you got?
We were saying earlier about how you couldn't re-experience Star Wars. Like you take things for granted now that any movie you see in a 4-week window, it's on airplanes. You can 1-to-1. You can watch anything on demand that you want to see.
Once a movie's out, like people scramble to be there opening night, but relax, it will be available to you anytime
Yes.
for the rest of your life.
Which
Yeah.
is why I like the Marvel movies. I need to know what happens tonight. I don't want to
Yeah.
wait that. And those are really successful. But Star Wars movies and mini movies, the Jaws, the big Steven Spielberg movies, once you saw them in the theater, you never saw them again. And we talked about how the filmmakers were born out of that. And there's that phrase that says captures imagination.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a dorky phrase. Oh, this movie captures people's imagination. But I said Star Wars kind of did, because it didn't give you a 1-to-1 relationship with the film anymore. You had toys that you would go create your own
Yeah.
adventures with. You had books that would tell you the story, but they're not literally the exact words. There were radio dramas and everything, and I brought some of that stuff today.
I have the comic books still
The
that I had when I was a
comic
kid.
books, that's
They're basically, you pick them up, they just turn to dust now.
Yeah.
They were read and reread so many times because I couldn't watch the movie. I had to read them.
And that's it. You
Comic.
could not see it. And I've become recently fascinated with Super 8 film. Do I need to explain Super 8 film?
Sure.
Film is what was used
Back in our
to shoot
day.
movies with. And they would use normally 35 millimeter film, and that's the size of the film. And then for consumer use for a while, it was half that. They would cut it, and it would be 16 millimeter. And that was too expensive. So for the regular market, they started something called 8 millimeter and Super 8. And that was what you had at home to shoot home movies, where Dad would film you fishing, and you had 2.5 minutes of film inside of a cartridge that you would film with. And
by the way, the sound.
The sound.
When you would shoot with that. Oh my God.
So the idea that you could not have Star Wars, but there were companies like Ken Films who would release these things. And there were, this is a 8-minute version in Super 8
Of Star Wars.
that your dad could go to the local camera store and pull off the thing and bring it home. And this is an edited story of Star Wars for you to watch this at
I'm
home.
so fascinated to
We
know
just
what
did
this is. I mean, 8 minutes of Star Wars. I mean,
Well, we just did the same thing. Kid grows up on a farm, blows up Death Star.
Yes, and that's why I thought that was really. That's really funny, because this one is the 17-minute, and it's in color.
oh, this is black and white. This one's
It's black and white with subtitles, and they come up with their own subtitles too that are not in the movie. And I will tell you,
Wait, there's
funnily
no
how-
audio. Then,
There's
right?
no audio
Yeah,
on this
so
one, but
it's-
this one's really funny because when you start playing it, it's just like Star Wars, George Lucas. It even says music by John Williams, although there's no music in this at all. And so they bothered.
He still had to get a credit.
They had a
Had
bunch
a
of
good
credits,
contract.
and then it starts, and it's your father wanted to have this when you were, and he hands the lightsaber to Luke, but it's subtitled like this is the weapon of a Jedi, and
That's
they
the
just-
start?
That's the start. And then
Where are we? Who is this person? What is happening?
they go to the Death Star just like that. So they're on the Death Star, and all of a sudden there's Han and Chewie and Leia. And we've never met them. And then they escape the Death Star, and they fight 4 TIE fighters, and they blow them up. And then it's like,
Oh God, he scared me. Totally scared the crap out of me.
And they live for another day. And then you could get the color version, and this does have 17 minutes, so it does start normally. It has a highlight, it goes through the story, but it still ends the exact same way. They go to the Death Star, they blow up 4 TIE fighters, and Paul, I actually brought a clip of Star Wars on Super 8. So it's kind of like this. So they leave the Death Star. Luke shoots the last of the 4 TIE fighters. And he shoots it, blows it up.
That's it! We did it! We did it!
Written and directed by George Lucas. And that's
They don't show the Death Star being destroyed?
No, not at all. And that's the thing.
I mean, why didn't they just show that? Screw the TIE fighter. I mean,
They
that's
got
what
8 minutes.
that was what was confusing to people because they're
17,
like,
I guess.
wait, this one was the 8-minute version because it actually had bottom of the screen. It says, and they lived to fight another day or something else like that, and that's how it went. And then this one does the exact same thing. And I think that Lucas said, well, I don't want to
give it away.
I don't want to give it away. But then oddly, the toys came out. And they made Super 8 film inside these little cartridges that played for 2 minutes. And you would look through the thing and you turn on the crank. And this has all the footage that's not in there.
Oh, so you found it.
So there are people who were buying this, all these things.
To get the
and
whole thing.
splicing them and making a 45, 50-minute version of Star Wars. Some that had
Wow.
sound, some that had and having their own home viewing parties.
Wow.
Where you could take all this, break this apart and make your own versions. And oddly, I bought one of these, and it was one that somebody was already doing it with. They had taken sections out and put other replacement things in. So I got one. I'm going to say I got the one that J.J. Abrams was doing this to. That's what I tell everybody. I got his, but it was one that people were already started taking pieces out of. They were already picking parts.
Wow. That's just incredible that, like, I mean, I know we all wanted to experience it again and again, and like the painstaking efforts that we all took to do that.
But it didn't.
I mean,
it didn't seem painful because it was
because
the only way
no,
you could do it.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was just the specifics of like how we had to get to it. I mean, for me, it was like records and the radio drama. I mean, I love the radio drama. It's just, you know. Actually, there's some cool stuff in the radio drama. If you go back and listen to it, there's like really some interesting.
I brought the entire radio drama. It's here on the floor. I used to record the cassette. They came a little bit later.
Yes.
But I just
yes.
thought that's another neat thing that imagine the people who grew up listening to those radio dramas, the Shadow and all that stuff.
Right.
And I'm sure George Lucas did. And then they're like, hey, we could tell Star Wars via a radio drama like the stuff we used to listen to.
Right.
But it's Star Wars, and it has the actual sound effects and music. And for most part, a lot of the actors.
That's awesome.
Now,
by the way, I always thought it would be really cool to just get a group of people together, like, you know, we know all these film people, whatever, and do the radio dramas of the prequels and rewrite.
Ooh.
You know,
Ooh,
I mean,
that's a
that
good
would
idea.
Phantom edit
just
of the prequels.
That's a good idea.
I mean,
The radio
because
drama?
then you could completely have control over the story of, I mean, you know, how you tell it and all of that stuff.
You could add in
Yeah,
parts.
you could
get
add
rid
in
of
parts.
midichlorians and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could.
Did you bring a piece of the radio
I
drama?
did. This is the thing. Before we get to the radio drama, I was saying about how that was the only way you could watch this stuff. But then they had a storybook, so that if you were a little
yes.
kid, you opened the book and you played a record, and the record would go, "This is the story." Actually, I have a clip of that.
This is the story of Star Wars. You can read along with me in your book. You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear R2-D2 beep, like this.
Oh, my God.
Let's begin now. Through the hatch strode a black-cloaked, helmeted figure, Darth Vader.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans.
And then, of course, you turn the page. All right. And so they're not the real voices. And then you could buy an LP, and on that, they sort of did the same thing, but they used the real, and this is what was cool, was they used the mono version of Star Wars that came out in '77 for all of the record.
Right.
But right after that, they started making a stereo version, and they
Right.
replaced some of the actors' voices and things. So the record is a different mix of the movie as well.
Oh, my God.
And this is the.
Oh, my God. That's
A
awesome.
long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a great adventure took place. In moments, Imperial stormtroopers invade the rebel craft with a blaze of laser weapons.
They shut down the main reactor. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness. We're doomed.
There you go. And you would listen to the whole. And I remember this record because at the end, like your Betamax tapes that you had to flip,
yes,
it would go clear Bay 327. We're opening the magnetic field, and then it would fade, and you put the record on the other side, and it would play the music and go clear Bay 320, and they had to reprise.
They had to
what
reset
you saw
it. They had to
thing
reset
to
what
make
it
sure you
was,
weren't
right.
lost. Right. Oh, we got to turn the page on that.
And I want to point out one more way you could have enjoyed Star Wars at home when you were a kid, because you couldn't make it out to the theater if it were gone. I recently went to my house and in the back where I grew up, and in the basement, uncovered about 10 Star Wars glasses, still intact, still in amazing shape. And we're enjoying them today. I mean, I suppose they probably should be on eBay, but back in the day, Burger King and Pizza Hut, mostly Burger King. Pizza Hut
Mostly
was ET.
Burger King, yeah.
Burger King for each movie. I'm shocked they got the deal over McDonald's, but Burger King was putting out Star Wars glasses, and if you went and bought something at Burger King, can you even do that anymore? Do they even give out glasses?
They can't give out glass now. They're afraid to give out plastic.
Yeah, they're pies are too damn hot.
Look at Han Solo.
It doesn't look like him at
What
all.
is that?
Yeah, it's not him at all.
This Return of the Jedi one
Look
looks pretty good still.
Yeah, Star Wars, they're still working it out. I mean, Ben looks like
oh, geez.
throw mama from
Wow.
the train or something. It's not good.
That's a George Romero.
And Luke looks like Rex Smith, but he kind of did anyway.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but still, it was these glasses were legendary, and I was so happy to come across them.
Oh my God.
You
I
can-
broke all of mine, unfortunately, as a kid.
Yeah, I'm sure I broke a few, but whatever was left, they managed to make the flight home from New York. I was shocked.
Oh my God.
I put stuff in them, I put stuff around them, I babied them.
But then you let us drink out of
And
it.
I
know.
Because, again, you can sell them on eBay, but what fun is that?
Right, exactly. Let's drink water.
Enjoy. Now, there's one other making of X. We talked about editing. We talked not enough maybe about the cinematography. Well, let me go into the cinematography for just a second, because I've always compared these movies to Star Wars is my favorite of the Star Wars movies because it's a 70s movie. Lucas came up the ranks with De Palma, Coppola, Scorsese, Spielberg, and so there's a way they all made those 70s movies. Books have been written about the 70s movie revolution, and this is a product of that. Even though it was the first big-time blockbuster ever, that movie was made like those films, with patience and with character and with giving the audience, relying on the audience being smart and patient as well. They don't have that confidence anymore with half the movies they make in Hollywood, not outside of this franchise as well. But and that's what I always loved about it. And we also talked about how the photography is just damn near David Lean-esque. I mean, which is no small feat. He didn't shoot low for this movie as well. So it looks great. It's paced great. And they actually went places.
Yeah.
You'll hear me rant about Crystal Skull over and over again. They get out of the studio, guys.
Yeah.
They went to Tunisia, and they went to London, or they went to wherever and shot these scenes in real locations, and it just pays such huge dividends to do that. I mean, it's a great-looking film. Gilbert Taylor, I will not forget your name again, sir.
Gilbert Taylor put pantyhose over the lens.
Oh, that's an old technique. Yeah.
And when they tried doing the special edition stuff and reshoot that stuff, they said, why doesn't our stuff look like this? And they went back and found out what pantyhose. They had to shoot with pantyhose over the lens. Yeah.
Just to give it a film sheen.
It takes light, and so
it absorbs the light and it kind of adds a little grain, right?
Yeah. So it breaks it up, so things aren't overexposed like that anymore. It makes the light scatter across things where there were dark spots.
It's basically it's basically putting a filter, but
now they have things called pro mist filters and other things like that. But
well, now everything is done in post, but it doesn't give you that same organic sensibility. It really, really doesn't. Yeah.
And now,
I was just going to say to your point before about the 70s filmmaking and all of that. We were talking about the early cut, I think. Maybe that wasn't during the show. Maybe that was before. But we're talking about an early cut, and the studio executives saw it, and they're like, well, maybe. No, it was during the show. And maybe this will work for kids, right? Was the original intention for this film to be like a film. Like I'm making a movie. It's a space movie, but it's not for kids. It's not. I mean, kids are gonna like it, but that's not the point.
That's why I always pick on.
It's The Godfather. It's Lawrence of Arabia.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Right.
It's supposed to be.
Right.
It's supposed to be taken seriously by everybody.
Interesting.
And I think even in the filmmaking, especially in the editing and the music stuff, those aren't people who are doing their work to let kids like it.
Right.
They wanted other people to appreciate. I mean, it was
Right.
nominated for best editing.
Right.
Even in that, so those people weren't screwing around. But that's one of the things that bugs me about the newer movies is they say, "Oh, they were for kids. That's why you don't get it." I'm like, I don't think those originals were ever just meant for kids.
Yeah.
They weren't making them just for kids.
No, I all over the movie guys, all over the movie guys multi-universe.
Yeah.
I'm always
multiverse
I'm
of
always
the-
ranting about Pixar because they truly understand what G-rated means. All audiences.
All audiences,
And their
yeah.
films are for all audiences, not just for kids. And that's why they're super huge blockbusters and totally intelligent and mature.
And by the way, when we were kids, there was no PG-13. It was just PG. And so, I mean, the idea of parental guidance, it's just like, just kind of a concept. Like, yeah, go see. I'm gonna buy your ticket. Here you go, kid. Get out of the car, and you know. I mean, but I mean, when we were kids, we were seeing, like I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark and all of those things. I mean, we didn't have. I mean, all of those movies probably would have been PG-13 now.
Poltergeist.
Yeah,
The Poltergeist for sure. You saw Empire in the theater?
I saw Empire in the
You
theater.
didn't see Star Wars in the theater?
Well, technically, I did, but I was 2.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I did. My dad took me in. I was like, forget it, because I couldn't even tell you a movie I saw in the theater before that. I just remember the huge ship going over my head, and I'm like, what is even going on
Yep.
here? I fell in love with Han Solo.
Yes, I know he's your favorite.
Rest in peace.
The amount of referential stuff in Star Wars to Flash Gordon, how much is there? I mean, the opening scroll, that was a Flash Gordon thing. Later on, actually, in the Phantom Menace, there was a thing with the one of the screens that it did like a whoo, and like the person's face came, the wipe, and that was straight out of a Flash Gordon kind of
The
look.
wipes were in there. I think all the wipes were kind of in some of those movies, but I also think even some of the samurai movies had those things in them too.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Seven
Kurosawa?
Samurai.
Yeah, I think that they had the transitions like that in there too. The one you're talking about, of course, that's Flash Gordon, where they were really obvious about the transitions.
Yes, yeah. Up until Star Wars, were there I mean, there weren't sci-fi films that were made for families or adults
General
or
audiences.
Yeah, general audiences. I mean, basically the sci-fi thing was, what was that for? Like, 12-year-old boys? I mean, was that the audience basically?
Fantastic Voyages and things like that.
Right.
Those are like, one theater would play it.
Right.
And they would show it. I don't know. I think it was kids.
Yeah.
It really probably was kids.
So this was groundbreaking in that it made everybody excited about Star Wars. There's that 70s Show episode where they see Star Wars and they just start freaking out. And they're doing all of the things that we're talking about. They're consuming it through the record album and all this stuff. I mean, I love that episode. Yeah.
That's no phones.
No.
But one last thing about the tech or the elements that make Star Wars great, the score. This is simply the greatest score of all time. Say what you want about Psycho. I understand. I get you with your Gone with the Wind, whatever. This score is unbelievably good and came out of nowhere.
The Princess Leia theme, I was listening to it today, the original Star Wars score, is... And I've seen John Williams several times at the Hollywood Bowl, and when he plays that, I think I've seen him do that live once. And it's just, that flute coming in, and it's this beautiful, it's so beautiful. And it is to me, it is a true theme. And it encapsulates what cinema is, because cinema to me is about story on every level. The music is story, the dialogue is story, the characters, the way they react and are in the scene, and the art direction, everything feeds what story is, and everything in and of itself is a story. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's too much, but
the last interview that I had.
Wait, to your point, that's what I'm sorry, Mike, but that's another way to relive the movie.
Yes.
Just put on the score, and
Oh my God,
that
yes.
score is guiding you through the images in your head
Absolutely.
that you only saw once.
Yeah.
But they're made stronger by that music because it is telling a story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
The last interview I had done pertaining to the Phantom Editor or anything, I talked a lot about John Williams and was saying that's the ace that makes you could have a movie like Battle Beyond the Stars, and people aren't, they don't have figures from many sci-fi movies that got made, but Star Wars, like what's the thing that made it different? Well, so John Williams is special, and it's not just anybody that makes music, because you can make music and it sounds great and you can tie it to a film, but he did something that I picked up on, is that he knew how to take a scene and not just, oh, Paul's sad in this scene, so I put sad music.
Right.
He added a dimension to there where it would either tell me why he was sad or don't be sad for Paul because things are going to go good for him. He found a way to layer that. And I don't think it was from directions from people. I think that he on his own would, in the middle of a scene, change it to be so that the kids knew that, oh, don't be sad, he's going to live. The music would change, even though it's still a scene about Paul being sad. And that's the magic of John Williams, that even if every piece of music he took was from someone else, when he places it in the movie, that's what I truly call score. That there's people who do music, and if you notice, a lot of movies now, they don't say original score by. It says music by.
Yeah.
And the reason that happened, I think, is in the 90s, the editorial people started placing music and cutting to the music, and they began building the score.
Yes.
And then they turn it over to a composer who's like rolling his eyes, going, "Oh, I wouldn't have done that." And then they have to mimic what somebody else has placed for them. And so they're like, "Well, I'm not scoring it anymore. I'm just creating music." And it starts saying "music by."
Oh,
and
that's
a
very
more common
interesting.
credit that you see all the time. And I mean, it's people
Great
you know.
insight. Yeah, such
music
great
by.
insight.
It doesn't say
Yeah.
original score by anymore.
Yeah,
And
too
I-
often a
interesting
score says,
insight.
here's how you should feel about the way this person is saying the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're having fun now.
It's not Star Wars, but it's E.T., and I always use this as an example of E.T. comes out, and Elliot's waiting there, and it's the Reese's Pieces when he's going to return them back, and that musically tells you, be scared. As he gets closer, it's showing you visually that this is horrifying, but the music makes you feel that it's not.
Right.
And he plays off of that the whole time to the
Right.
point where he puts the Reese's Pieces down on there as an offering. And I love the change in the music, and it all happens
Oh,
in
makes
a
me wanna
minute,
watch
in a
E.T.
minute,
right now.
In a minute. And he does that
awesome.
many times. Star Wars is a little more, this
Yeah.
first was a little more bombastic, so
Yeah.
there's not a lot of subtle moments like that.
Yeah. To that point, by the way, I feel like there was a little bit of that missing in the prequels.
It's very missing.
There's a few songs that I think are dynamic and amazing, like Duel of Fates. There's a few, and then there's a few songs where I feel like he really was trying to pull emotion out because the scene was so emotionless, and it needed some kind
His
of
score
yeah,
backing the love story between Anakin and Padme is amazing.
It is. It's
Their
absolutely
love
beautiful.
story is not.
Yeah.
So
but
it's
his
like
score,
a great,
so it sounds like this epic, love story, and it should be, but what we're seeing isn't. Anyway,
if you close your eyes,
it is. Yeah, I believe that. But I will say, and I know maybe you have mixed feelings about the new movies, but for me, Force Awakens. Rey's theme,
it's great,
captures that, and literally what you're talking about, because we're seeing this young woman who is obviously alone on this planet. I mean, it's if you just saw the images and you had no score, you'd be like, this is a sucky moment in her life. Right? But instead we get
it is.
And there's something hopeful,
well.
like she's on a journey. There's something going on.
Hopeful and something sad.
Yeah.
But I don't think somebody told him to do that. He knows how to layer that to make it not seem doom.
Well, he talks about when he played it at the Hollywood Bowl, when he played that theme, he fell in love with Daisy Ridley, and he loves that theme. I mean, that theme came to him, and that's
Well, there's people, obviously, when they were making, I think this is the first cut of Star Wars, they did use a lot of music.
Temp scores?
Yeah, like temp scores and stuff. And now it's become really popular, but they were using symphony music.
Sure.
Because George Lucas wanted symphony music, and that's not what people were necessarily
They
doing.
weren't doing that. Well, especially not for sci-fi, right? I mean, it was
Not
all
at
kind of
all.
like...
And that's also expensive. And,
you know, they were doing like all kind of weird sounds and stuff.
no one was trying that hard, and when he asked for that, that's just very different. And then, of course, it became Close Encounters and Superman.
Right.
Like, it just went on for years. Of doing, and
Superman.
Well, we were discussing about how he pulled from his own influences to place them in the movie, and I say it sometimes. It might be, you know, like people are saying, he stole it from this thing, and I would say it might just be the first thing that I said is they use that as a temp, and then you're in that box.
Right.
And we brought in some samples of like
Eric Wolfgang Korngold?
Well, first Star Wars. Do we know what Star Wars sounds like? Sounds like this. Dun 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 dun. And there's another piece of music that was for, I think it's a movie or it was a play or something by Eric Wolfgang Korngold. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
It just sounds like I said something pornographic.
It does.
Yeah, it is. Mr. Korngold.
You ever have a Korngold?
Yeah, give me one of those.
Mr. Korngold, your pizza's
And
here.
I think it's called King's Row. Is it?
Holy moly.
Superman.
And this is Korngold?
Yeah, and then
Wow.
And at the end they do a reprise, which is like the throne room.
Holy smokes. But you know, whether people feel like he ripped that off or he didn't, you know, the everything has been done, right, to some degree, right?
Well, finding out later, that is the piece of music that they used when they made their temp.
So there you go.
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
that's why it was an influence. So I did a film years ago with it was like a family project. It was my mom's brainchild, actually, and it was like a spiritual piece. And you know, I had done this temp score with things from like Field of Dreams, and I mean, it's like all of this like amazing, huge music, you know, stuff from The Mission and all this. And then you know, I had a composer friend of mine. I'm like, hey man, we hired him, and I'm like, hey, and then so he starts delivering stuff. I'm like, it's really good, but can we go back to because you as a filmmaker, your temp starts to you start to fall in love with it, and so you want to try to mimic it, as you said. So.
Well, there's a couple more, but then I want to end it with on a positive. Not that he's ripping these off, because I know people.
Yeah,
say
I mean, ripping it off. Maybe inspiration is a better.
Of course, you take
phraseology.
inspiration from other things that put images in your head.
Yeah.
So I was also saying that 2001 was a very noticeable score, and the notes, if you play the 2001 score, this is the slow version. It's da 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 da.
Oh my gosh.
So they're the same. They're the notes. It's just missing the dun dun dun. It's da da. Dun, 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 dun.
He took the next part, put it in, yeah.
But then I'm also saying that I think that even that thing, whenever that could have been inspired by something else. So
right.
We're mixing.
Right,
it's all getting mixed up in there.
It's all.
Here's this faster version. I sped it up. Da, 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 da. So it's the same notes.
Yeah.
Same notes.
That's really,
and
really
Paul alerted
interesting.
me to something when we were discussing that he said, have you heard of is it Mars or planets?
Gustav Holst's The Planets.
Yeah.
The guy was he was basically a composer like a Mozart and all the others, but he was I mean, it's crazy to say back in the 1800s or whatever, was that he was cinematic, but the guy laid it out with these themes. I mean, this is Mars, and you can tell.
What? What? This is some other guy? This is not John Williams?
Yeah, the 1800s.
He's great, though.
And
they've used Mars. This is Mars of the planets. He did a theme for every planet. Jupiter is amazing. Mars is amazing.
And I have the clip from the actual movie, the trench.
My jaw is... Stop it!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Now, thank you guys, by the way, for bringing this because I had heard this for so many years and I've never actually heard the comparison. So thank you.
And that same piece of music, when they bring the Millennium Falcon on and they're playing that music,
Yeah.
and that music is also part of Mars. It's in another section, but it's very similar to the same music as. Clear Bay 327. We're opening the magnetic field. That music is
the
also
bum bum
it's in that same piece of music.
Yeah,
And-
they've used Mars in movies before. I want to say for a takeoff. Like, the right stuff doesn't seem right because
that could be right.
That
Is
could be
this
right.
still this guy?
Yeah, this is earlier in the Mars.
It's fantastic
It sounds like
music.
Oh, it's
cinema
amazing.
music. It's
Yeah.
so good.
And I'm sure Williams would tell you it's amazing.
And so what I was going to finish this is I know all these people were talking about it like being stolen or whatever. I'm like, but I'm saying over and over again, the gift that John Williams keeps bringing to these movies is even if he didn't write any of that, it's he knows how to place pieces of music that do that part where I'm talking about, where it's this going into this going into this, and that's the scoring part, which I think is missing from a lot of films. That they just lay a track of music underneath, which only highlights what's the most obvious thing going on right now. And even if he did, and he writes amazing music, there's so many great things before that trench stuff that da 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 and it changes into dun 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 dun. Like it's genius how you can change rhythm, and that's his gift.
That's his gift
to all of these movies. I gave him one other thing. It's from Stravinsky, and it's not Star Wars. Did I send that to you, Paul?
I'm not sure.
It's maybe I didn't send it to you, but it goes dun 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 dun, and I'm like, oh my god, that's Jaws. It's from Rite of Spring from Stravinsky. Yeah, I don't think I sent that to you.
Wow, that's Holst.
Oh my god!
Clear,
And
man.
this is the other.
That's Gustav Holst.
Holst is no joke.
He is no joke. I listened to that whole thing, and I was like, you
Man,
But if it's a legendary piece
This
of
is a lesson in. I mean,
But if it's a legendary piece of classical music called The Planets, and you're making a movie called Star Wars, look to it. Be inspired. I mean, he did the right thing.
I think it goes back, though, to, like, whether we're talking about filmmaking or acting or any of those things. I mean, you're going to go and you're going to do research. Hopefully, if you're a smart filmmaker, if you're a smart actor, you're going to go and you're going to do research. You're going to pull from stuff, and stuff's going to speak to you, and some of it's going to be like, I'm stealing that, I'm using that, I'm going to use this, but I'm going to do my spin on it, and all of those things. I mean, that to me is what creates the new art. I mean, it's.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's why when I would see all those, I'm like, it's not 100% fair, because he probably learned to read the sheet music and write from exactly those pieces.
Right.
And when he learned what instrumentation was for an orchestra, it would be from a Gustav Holst. Like, where do you arrange? How do you do it? And he probably saw those scores and played them many times.
Right.
That's how you learned arrangement of those things. And I'm fascinated. I went on a tear, mostly because of the Zappa thing, of going through these old composers and finding that stuff. And when I went to Rite of Spring, that was where I found out that it was like a play, and people fought each other. They thought the music was so violent and inappropriate for human consumption that it was too.
What?
And they would fought in the thing, and it became obscene.
Oh my God!
That it was so, and everybody, like, if you ask John Williams, Stravinsky's awesome. Everybody's inspired by that.
Wow.
And it was the most offensive thing that you could think of in theater.
Oh my gosh! Fantastic, fascinating. Brilliant.
All right, and we only have time for a few more things, but
All
I
right.
want to make sure I get this.
Oh.
To a couple of things to talk about specifically. Did you have one?
Go ahead. I was just going to jump into the characters thing, but
Go ahead.
I know we kind of talked on it a little bit, but did anybody as a kid, like, who or what is Darth Vader? Like, I was so, as a kid, like, he's a robot? I think he's a robot. He's a robot.
He's more machine now than man.
Right. He's a man. I don't know. I was very confused by that. I don't know. That just popped out to me as something that was fun.
But
I figured it was a guy. When he walks in the door at the beginning of the movie, and I was like, hey, this is some guy in a big helmet.
Well, I think I got confused as a kid because, you see C-3PO, and he's clearly a robot, and then you see this other guy. He's not a robot? Okay, he's not a robot.
It's like the goofy
Yeah.
Pluto thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Are they both dogs? One stands up.
Yeah, well, one's wearing pants and one's not. Why not?
Right. And then, I mean, we have to do a whole other show
The
on
casting.
the special editions,
the casting.
don't we?
Oh, yeah, well. Well, let's talk about the casting real quick because we always talk about casting.
We do.
There was a big casting process for this film. All the biggies that we know now. I mean, auditioned for the roles, and Jodie Foster, and the list goes on and on and
William Catt.
That's true. He may not have been bad.
And of all things, you know this too. Perry King for Han Solo, who ended up being the voice of Han Solo in the radio dramas.
right. That's right.
He's the radio drama voice of Han Solo.
What show was he on? Jake and the Fat Man?
It was Riptide or something
Riptide.
like that.
That's
Something
right.
like that.
Riptide. You're right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
what do you think about the
Harrison Ford was like legendarily returned to carpentry after American Graffiti after spending all the money that made him, right? And then he was fixing a door in somebody's office, and they spotted him, and he came aboard.
Well, my understanding was that he was reading with people. He was brought on. He was doing carpentry in the building.
They paid him to start reading,
and they paid him to start, reading. And then I guess at some point either he read it and Lucas couldn't get out of his head, or he actually read for it.
Everybody sucked in comparison to Harrison Ford that they kept bringing in. He goes, I like the way Harrison reads it better.
I ain't nobody, dork. That's my favorite line in American Graffiti. That says everything you need to know about Harrison Ford.
That's great.
Yeah, I love
But
that
they
story.
were doing dual casting for Carrie and Star Wars at the same time. That's why a lot of those people crisscross. Like William Catt.
That's right. Yeah.
Would Sissy Spacek have been considered for Princess Leia?
I don't know. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, really young and weird.
It would have been pretty weird. It'd be like what's her name from The Shining? What is her name? I keep wanting to call her
Duvall.
Olive. I want to keep calling her
both very
Olive
fragile.
Oil.
Yeah, but
Olive
they
Oil.
should.
What if Shelley Duvall was Princess Leia? Oh my God.
Well, in the end, it's and I did some. I refigured some of the numbers here for you, Sean. In the end, it's an $11 million movie, $1977, $11 million. Box office domestic take 307. Just stupid. With the re-releases and special editions, that bumps up to 460. So 460 domestic take, $775 million worldwide take. Adjust that for inflation, and it's a $1.6 billion return on $11 million.
Wow. That's a lot.
Just for inflation, The Force Awakens doesn't even crack the top 10, which is currently our number one without inflation.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
The biggest movie of all time.
Wow.
Not worldwide, domestically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Worldwide, it's Endgame. That was a big news thing recently.
Oh, interesting.
Beating out Avatar. Yeah.
Wow. I was going over in my research. I found some. I was researching like some little known facts about Star Wars, and according to Reader's Digest, Luke was originally almost a girl, which I thought was very interesting. And I think there is some artwork, or some Ralph McQuarrie artwork.
So they came back around to that.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, you said there was actual trash in the trash compactor scene.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
There was actual trash, and I guess after a few hours, it really started to smell so bad. And I guess Chewie's.
Oh God!
Like that, it smelled so bad, and then like his fur thing like just smelled terrible the rest of the shoot.
That would be one of those things they probably didn't have alternates.
Right.
Like here's the Chewie suit.
Right.
Yeah.
For $11 million and a bunch of yak fur. Yeah.
Because the Beatles go on tour and they only had one suit that matched.
Right.
So if somebody had lost their suit, you had to change into different suits. So they only had one Chewbacca outfit. It smelled like tractor.
Well, this could be a question for the end of the entire Countdown to 9 Enterprise in December, but we'll ask it now because this was the first movie to come out in our chronological timeline, although it's 5th, 6th in the world of the movies.
Right.
Okay. In what order do you watch the films now? If, say, you're showing it to someone who doesn't know anything, they're a young kid, it's your niece, nephew, child, whatever, and you say, I want you to watch Star Wars movies. You start them on Star Wars, or do you really go back and watch the prequels first?
I would say Star Wars. Otherwise, you know everything about like that whole mystery of Darth Vader being your father. You can't experience that. And when people film their kids watching Star Wars for the first time, and there's videos on YouTube where he goes, I am your father. And of course that person's filming their kid, and the kid goes, is that true? Whoa. He's lying. Like, if you watch them in the numerical order, all that goes away. And I think that would ruin it. That's the way we saw it.
I agree.
Which, by the way, so I agree. When we started this podcast, we had a conversation about what order are we going to watch these in? What order are we going to talk about these in? And eventually, for whatever reason, I don't even remember what the reason was, we just decided to do it in chronological order, which has been sort of a fascinating journey. But it was watching moments from this that I sat there and I went, this was not the right choice. We should have started with the original Star Wars movie. And the reason why is because of what you just said. You don't get to experience it. And because there's something else that stood out for me. It's not just the Luke father, the Darth Vader's the father and all that stuff. It wasn't just that. I found the opening scroll, the original opening scroll online, that doesn't have A New Hope on it. And I was reading it, and I was like, if you watch these in chronological order, because of course we've already watched Rogue One and all that, this opening scroll isn't even impactful. You're like, yeah, I saw these guys. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. But when you read it in a scroll, you're like, holy crap, you mean who are the rebels? What the Empire? I don't even know what's happening, and then there's a ship,
I don't want it to be about that, but also just the technology. If you're seeing these first, how the technology does progress and get better, it makes logical sense for that to be.
That's interesting.
That way for kids.
Yeah.
I don't think it really bothers me at all to go back and forth, but just even for technical stuff.
Yeah.
Unless you watch the special editions, and who would do that?
Again, that is a whole. We should do like an ancillary episode
on the special editions.
We'll cover all 3 special editions.
There's a couple of videos online about the Han Solo Greedo shooting, because I guess they went back and changed it. Yes, like several times, and I mean, there's all these like comparison videos. I mean, people painstakingly have all 4 versions on the screen.
I've done that, but I just want you to know I've done that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing to watch. I mean, thank you all the people that do that stuff, because it is interesting to watch. I mean, to me, it was perfectly wonderful the way it was there, and I understand Lucas is like, well, does it make him like sort of a bad guy? But to me, that was part of his journey. Yeah, he was kind of a bad guy. I mean, he literally is making fun of Luke on the Millennium Falcon. He's like, this guy.
2 seconds later, they see a TIE fighter. He's like, let's blow it out of the sky, because that's what he does.
Right.
They got to convince him not to.
Yeah.
I will never understand. And they keep changing the amount of time now that it takes to shoot. Like, they shoot at the same time.
Oh, yes,
the Luke jumping off in Empire, and they added the scream. So he's like,
terrible.
I'll never join you.
Terrible. Can't stand it. I hate it.
It's not even him.
No.
It's Ian McDermott's voice that they just processed going in surround sound all the way down. But it's gone. So
they got rid of it?
Yeah, so George Lucas puts that out in the special editions, and the first DVD set come around. But if you watch the Blu-rays, it's not there anymore. He just jumps off and doesn't do it. He realized it was a bad idea and did another.
It is a bad idea, because John Williams wrote a beautiful piece of score that actually fulfills that moment. It's that, but even, and it goes into this mezzo forte and this. I mean,
but even more so, Mike and I talk about this all the time. Whenever you can put spaceships in a shot, that's great. But when you screw with story,
that's the story.
Yeah.
When Luke falls off that spire and into he doesn't fall. He chooses to jump. And so if he goes, "Wah!" it's like he fell. And you've changed the storyline. You've changed his intention.
Isn't that interesting?
Bad news.
Yeah.
So do what you want with robots, but leave the story alone when you go back and mess with it and make a special edition.
And if you do make a special edition, there are alternates like the non-special edition. The what is that called? Where they went and
despecialized.
Despecialized.
Yeah.
You ever seen this? It's probably the most effective way to watch it on your new TVs, in that it is all the clean footage that they have, and then anytime it would have used a special edition, they pulled it from a film print or something and compiled that back into those sections, so you watch a despecialized version of Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi.
Is this on Blu-ray?
Yeah, they're out there in high def now.
Wow.
So they use scans from the parts from other movies to fulfill that.
Wow.
And that's a really good way to watch it. But that Team Negative that scanned a 35mm print of Star Wars and cleaned it all up, that's the most faithful thing. It actually has the original score too.
Oh, wow.
But the despecialized version.
Where's that available?
Find it.
All right.
Yeah.
We gotta talk after the show.
The despecialized version has like 12 audio tracks that you can listen to. So you can listen to the original mono, and then the very first stereo, and then you start hearing you can go through and listen to everything that they were changing audio-wise.
Why do I not know about this?
So much fun.
Oh my gosh, I learned so much on this show, Paul.
I say it's fun, but it could be stupid.
Because we're talking to the Phantom editor, and if you don't know, again, if we didn't have time to really go too in depth on that, but Mike was one of the first guys out there who one of the first people in general who decided that maybe there was a little too much Jar Jar and Anakin in the first Phantom Menace, and again they screwed with the story a little too much. So Mike's edit shifted and changed that, among other things, and then it became a whole classification of movie now. Fan edits, and Topher Grace is like this celebrity fan editor now. But Mike started it all. Mike's the one who got the. Mike went out there into the world ahead of everybody else and took the cease and desist letters, so you don't have to.
I fought the fights.
Yeah.
I wore the mask.
I want to know, just the geek in me wants to know, so how, and maybe you can't say, I don't know, but how did you get the stems and stuff like that?
There is no stems.
Was that just
They're just constructed from scratch.
So did you pull the surround?
Yeah.
And so, because the surround will give you like, I've got just the.
But on the original VHS, there is no surround.
Right.
It's
what did you do the original edit from a VHS? Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
That's all there was, right?
Yeah. And so you would literally just, I'd find the score that was used in the film, and you have to take it from being 100% and move it down to 99.9 because it's a pulled back.
Right. Because back then it was 29.97
so
and all of that.
So I line that up, and then I could take the music, and I have to build new sound effects and stuff.
Are you kidding me?
From other things that they had. Now, I didn't do that amply because of the amount of time. It wasn't like it was on parade for other people to see. But I wanted it to be good enough.
Yeah. No, that was no. I mean, I noticed that because there was stuff that was. I mean, it was really some really beautiful, smooth, cool transitions, and
it's still out there to be given away or borrowed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Don't let anyone sell to you.
Yeah.
But there is a clip online of Jar Jar's death that you can go watch on YouTube.
Yes.
Which is fun.
I thought it was very interesting, and I may have mentioned this on the show before, but soon after Disney took over the Lucasfilm and Star Wars and all of that, they started doing all of this, these ancillary Star Wars things, I think, to try to get little kids like up to speed on who these characters are and who are all these people, and basically getting them ready for Force Awakens and all this stuff. And they did, I think it was like a Lego, I want to say it was like a Lego version of Phantom Menace, and the scene where the droids are fixing the ship in Phantom Menace, they're trying to get past the blockade, and it's R2's heroic moment. For whatever reason, Jar Jar goes up with him, and he gets shot off the ship. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the new owner of the company killing this character
for money.
Yeah, and I've always felt bad for Ahmad Best. He seems like an amazing guy. Everything I've heard, and we've talked about him in the show because we had Christian on who knew him, and he seems like a great guy, and I know he did a lot of great work. But
to add to that too, it was also when I did this, it wasn't all those people.
Yeah,
it was. There had already been a bunch of time where people were talking about how it sucked and how George Lucas sucked. That I had nothing. I mean, it was already going on. The Razzies, all that stuff existed before that. So it was almost like, oh, here's this thing that nobody wants anymore. But you know why they don't want it? It's because of this. And instead of sitting around and playing video games or smoking pot or whatever, any of that stuff, I did something proactive with my free time. I made something that I wanted people. Basically, I wanted me to like it. Try to find a way to like it.
And did you?
I mean, I think it's better. I'd say sometimes it's like a D- to a C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's better. I was curious about that. Like, if it ultimately, did you feel like,
But I found it to be like a learning thing because you realized why you can be a better writer from doing that, and there's so much more out of it than just the obvious.
For me, one of the big takeaways as a filmmaker was the power of collaboration. I think there's so much power in having, a producer on a film who is a creative producer and is not just like, a line producer and doing, budgets and I mean, that's important too, but you need someone there to help with the overall vision and be like, hey, that's great. That's a great idea. Let's have this person over here look at it. I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things I think about filmmaking. And certainly if we go back to the original Star Wars, that's one of the reasons it worked. I mean, ultimately we had a great conversation about the editorial process and how many 4 editors?
It ended up being, I think there's a 5th one added. If you add George Lucas.
So 5, including, Mr. George Lucas. And I mean, that's a lot of people to cut a motion picture. Yeah.
And Gary Kurtz being his collaborator was another good sounding board for him.
Well, everybody said that once he was not a part of it, that it everything changed. So,
Man, we can't even get into Ben. We got to wrap it up. But man, Ben Burt, we didn't even go into.
Oh my
it.
God!
We play all
Well,
the
we've
samples
talked a
of
little
his
bit about
crazy-
him, but he's amazing.
Yeah,
He is just
Yeah.
amazing.
too many sound
and
effects.
and he
to play.
can't win Academy Award from all those sound effects that he created. There's no
That
Academy
everybody uses and steals
Every
now.
They gave him a
but-
tech one, didn't they?
He never. The sound got an award, but the idea of creating sound effects for a movie is not an Academy Award thing.
He never got like a
Which
special.
is after a while, but he realized, well, I need to be the mixer of the movie, so I could be an Academy. That's why he moved into I need to be the editor. Like he was trying to find other ways
To
He
get-
could still do what he did, but
Right.
I got to get some accolades here because that's how I'm gonna move up in my career.
I mean,
Like it's funny to think of Ben Burt out there struggling to try to get work.
it makes me sad actually because I mean,
He's great.
those sound effects,
It's so
part of our
good.
childhood. I mean, the behind the scenes. You know, we talked about it on the last episode. I mean, being out there and hitting the thing. You know, yeah. I mean, and the lightsaber one too.
That's really good too.
He won an Oscar for sound effects editing for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes,
Oh,
And he won an Oscar for E.T. sound effects editing.
editing.
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars got special achievement awards as well from the Oscars.
oh, interesting.
And they should.
Damn straight.
So that's good. All right, that's 6 movies down, 4 to go. That's 2
Yeah.
original trilogy and the 2 Disney Star Wars movies that we'll call. Please come back the 15th of every month, and don't forget the last show of our run will post just before the release of episode 9.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm Paul Preston,
I'm Sean Blodgett.
and of course, Mike Nichols has joined us today. Mike Nichols, everybody, who has removed himself from social media except for Instagram.
Yeah,
At
I'm on Twitter.
Are you
Yeah, I'm still on.
actively?
Lately, I kind of said a few things.
At the Edit Doctor, where you can find him. And don't forget to follow us at facebook.com/countdown9, at countdown9 on Twitter and Instagram. And you can get the show at YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and of course the movieguys.net. Round of applause for Sean's editing. He edits the hell out of this thing every month we do it, and it's great. So, Movie Guys has never done a 3-camera shoot till Sean got aboard. And the guy then thinks, aggressively. He shoots high, and now we have this 3-camera shoot show, and it's pretty
Faster
exciting.
and more intense.
Faster and more intense. Join us next month for The Empire Strikes Back, and Sean and I will argue whether that's better than Star Wars itself.
It is, but you couldn't have had it without the other one.
Until then, Sean, I love you.
I know.